The question asks to write a polynomial with real coefficients that has the following zeros: 0, square root of 3, and negative I. Well, first to note about this, y equals x squared and y equals 7x squared. Those have the same zeros. The zeros are just x equals 0, 0. It's 1, 0 with a multiplicity of 2 both times. If you say x squared equals 0, x equals the square root or plus or minus the square root of 0 equals 0. Well, 7x squared equals 0. X squared, divide both sides by 7 equals 0. And then x equals plus or minus 0. So there could be all kinds of different numbers multiplied by the polynomial. So I'm going to put an a in front of this whole thing. Whatever I end up with, I'll put an a in front of it to let you know that I can put any constant in front of this polynomial and it will still have the same zeros. So if these are the zeros, that means that x equals 0, x equals square root of 3, and x equals minus I, the imaginary number, or a complex number with a 0 real component and non-zero imaginary component. X equals negative I. Well, square roots and i's come in conjugate pairs. In other words, if you have square root of 3, x also equals negative square root of 3. And if I is a root, or negative I is a root, then I is also a root. So now I can write these factors. I have x equals 0. That means the factor is x minus 0, or just x. X equals negative square root of 3. I subtract negative square root of 3 from both sides. The factor is x plus square root of 3. And then if I have square root of 3 as a root, I subtract square root of 3 from both sides. X minus square root of 3 is the factor. Same thing with I. One factor will be x plus I, and one factor will be x minus I. And again, technically, there's some constant that this whole thing can be multiplied by. And that equals the function, that equals the polynomial. Now I will multiply this thing out, get the whole polynomial, and I'll do these two, and I'll do these two. Well, these are the difference of squares. Remember, a plus b times a minus b equals a squared minus b squared. It's called the difference of two squares. This middle term, b times a, and the outside term minus b times a, those add up to be 0 when I combine like terms. So a plus b times a minus b equals a squared minus b squared. Write it on a cheat sheet, memorize it. Difference of two squares. You need to know it. So this is going to be x squared minus square root of 3 squared. Well, square root of 3 squared is just 3, so x squared minus 3. This one is x squared minus I squared. I squared is negative 1, so minus negative 1 is plus 1. And then this whole thing times a, whatever this constant is. There could be any constant can multiply it, and it'll still have the same zeros. That's f of x. I might run out of room here. Let's see what happens. Now I'm going to multiply these two together. This is x to the 4th. Yep, I'm just going to run out of room. X squared times 1 is plus x squared. Minus 3 times x squared is minus 3x squared. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. I've still got the a, and I've still got the x. Now I will distribute the x. Maybe I'll have just enough room. This is a times x to the 4th is x to the 5th. X squared minus 3x squared is minus 2x squared times x is minus 2x cubed. And then x times minus 3 is minus 3x. And that equals this polynomial. You can put that into Wolfram Alpha or Symbolab. Just put x to the fifth minus 2x cubed minus 3x equals y, or equals f of x. Find the zeros, and it will show you that the zeros are, it'll show 0 plus or minus square root of 3 and plus or minus I. But that's the answer to this question. A times x to the fifth minus 2x cubed minus 3x equals f of x. That is the polynomial that has these zeros, degree 5, and all real numbers multiplied by the x. 1 is a real number, -2 is a real number, -3 is a real number. All real coefficients.